This is a review of John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath.
For the first time ever, I'm going to try this format, so let's get this started with. Now, John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, right down here as an FYI, by the way, is one of the classics of American literature. Now, why do we consider it one of the classics of American literature? Firstly, an American wrote it, obviously. American literature. And secondly, this is Dust Bowl fiction as well, too. And it's just not any Dust Bowl fiction. It's the Dust Bowl fiction by some people. It describes perfectly how all the migrants moving from Oklahoma or Texas or wherever the Dust Bowl happened, all the way to California, all those people, what they felt and what all those migrants had to face, the unfair things that happened, and all those human rights that were violated. And so with that, what is the Dust Bowl? Well, for that you can check out my other video on it. But for now, all you need to know is that a bunch of people tried the old style of farming way too long. They forgot to make sure that this thing expired. And so, well, all the soil that used to be there, it all turned into very dry, cracky dust. The soil cracked because, firstly, there was intense heat because of the droughts. Secondly, there was no rain. There was like sudden rain, and then suddenly no rain and intense sunlight for like several weeks, which of course resulted in crops becoming, well, failed. And so the dust was basically just a bunch of dry dirt. And eventually wind came in and picked up all that dirt and turned them into dust storms. Sometimes visibility was near zero. So why should you read this book is the first question that comes into mind. This is a book that was relevant in the 1920s, so it was probably useful that you could read it then, because it was available in the 1930s. It also had some affordable pricing, which is about between $2 and $3, so it was affordable back then. Even people who never read a book before also bought this book. It was probably one of the first books that was ever read by some people. It's also the narration of the story. It's not just a plot. It also describes contents and contexts of everything that happened during the time that this whatever part of the Joad family on their journey was on. If they were buying a car too, well then the book talked about the unfairness about buying a car by some shopkeepers, where a bunch of car dealers are like, "Hey, look at this brand new car, best deal ever. It's right now, but it's worth it." And they're like, "How much?" 50 cents, man. Like 60 cents, man. And it's like, "Oh, I can only pay like 50 cents. Too bad." So like, here you go. Fine. I'll get the rest of the money on loan. Good to sir. Now, there's your brand new car. And then the car dealer going ahead and saying that, "Alright, this car was not even worth 20 cents. But scammed it because he would be willing to buy anything for any price for that car." And of course, all those scams are seen as immoral and violations of human rights nowadays. But that's the whole point of this goddamn book. This goddamn book, it's goddamn good because of all these contexts and all the things and the situations that the Dust Bowl migrants all faced. If it wasn't for them, a lot of them would probably be facing other situations too. If it wasn't for this book, it probably also never shined a spotlight onto what people were feeling back then, onto what people actually had back then, onto what the poverty was like, what all those Hoovervilles were like. It's also a really influential book, and lots of people read it because it won the Pulitzer Prize. Lots of other people read it because, well, John Steinbeck has a good reputation. But how it all works out is that eventually the Grapes of Wrath is there just because we are all worth it. We see it, we think about it, we read it, and we all think, "Hey, this is a pretty good book. This is a pretty good book. It's about the Dust Bowl and the poverty." Like, you know, those rich people thinking, "I don't have enough clothes," and then and then there's this contrast of people thinking, "Oh, I wish I had enough clothes. Is this enough clothes? And then rich people thinking, "I hate school. I want to go to work." And then poor people thinking, "I wish I could go to school and not work in this miserable conditions." Rich people always find things hard for them because, well, they never saw how easy it was for them. They had a literal beginning start from the line where every other poor person would start from right here, the negatives. The rich people start at least from the zero. And some even started in the hundreds or thousands because of their parents and through inheritance. But then they squandered all that money and eventually raised themselves back to the negatives, if not as poor as the poorest. It also has a lot of metaphors. There's like a bunch of simple words, but all those simple words are arranged in certain ways that it sounds like you can do it yourself. It sounds like you can say it too. It's complex thoughts coming from a common man, but it's actually not easy to create these sentences as well too. It's basically what happens, and Steinbeck's Six Principles of Writing is always a must read too. Six Principles of Writing was just basically a letter that he sent to some Hollywood actor. But how he gets the Joad family, how he gets them to go ahead and get this incredible story to show all the poverty, all the things that happened, and to reflect on it in his own hometown that he saw as one of the best states in the country, one of the most beautiful places in the entire world, and seeing it with all this grand golden opportunity, but then they all rejecting those people who were promised the golden land of opportunity. He was probably shocked by that, and he wanted to show it all to everyone else who was not familiar with it, especially the rich. In fact, because of this, California banned the book, calling it communist propaganda. But then again, surprisingly, the Russians also banned it because it also shows that the poorest Americans can afford a car. And so, in the end, why you should read this book is mainly because of all the things that it portrays, all the things, all the histories that it shows us, everything that we learn from it, from another era. It's a reflection for us. Right now, we are in economic crises too. There are also stock market crashes that happen in the 21st century. There are also a lot of other things that happen. People still lose their money to stocks lots of times, if not daily, at least weekly. And lots of people around the world are still in impoverished conditions. Lots of people are still going hungry, even though the whole planet has like 8 billion, 9 billion people when we are creating enough food to like feed 10 billion people. Well, that's sad and all, but that's how life works. But if we can change how life works, if we somehow reverse the life system of poverty and things, well then, I guess we can have a much more happier life. And John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath can show that too. It was like a little beacon of hope, or a light in the shine of darkness, a light shining into the darkness during the time of the Great Depression and the Dust Bowls. It was a map into what was wrong with our system, how the perfect America was not as perfect as it can be, and how we can change it. And that's about it. That's why you should read The Grapes of Wrath. And that is also my review of The Grapes of Wrath. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope to see you guys soon. Until next time, Shan out. Peace. Bye bye.